Came in and the bathroom's on the left. Again, make sure you stay around for the lunch and snacks and cake afterwards. Well, this is our third annual Appreciation Day. It's sponsored by the Middlesex Town Board, and we certainly appreciate their support. The research is done by the Middlesex Heritage Group, led by Ruth Clark and Janet Reed and Nancy Elwell, and all of the people that work there on Wednesdays and Saturdays have done a lot of research for the program. This third is actually comes out of an event held in '92 for Fred Harder, which at that time he was a town historian, so they held a celebration for him. In '97, the town was kind enough to honor my father, Stuart Mitchell, and then in 2004, the whole idea was resurrected to some prominent citizens that have contributed to the character and the success of the town. In '04, we honored Dr. George Allen and Dr. Chafee, W. Button, and Punch Lafley. Last year, we honored Rudy Elwell, Clifford DeWick, and Sandy Emerson. And this year, we're very pleased to be honoring Jean Charlin and Judy Harder. And we're going to start off with Jean Charlin, and Donna House is going to lead us off. The names go on this plaque, which is displayed in the hall, and then each family gets their own plaque to take home.
I first met Jean during the month that we were working to get out information on the Durham Central School and the Middlesex Valley Central School for the merger meetings. We worked together to get out the projected costs and the projected aid for the proposed new district. The districts did merge in June of 1968. By the next September, some of the students from both sides of the district were in the same classrooms, which was an amazing feat. Jean was always calm, quiet, and focused on his work, but at the same time, he was open and friendly and fun to work with. When we merged, Betty Clark was the superintendent secretary, Jean was clerk, and I was treasurer. I think that for at least the first 2 years, the three of us typed all the tax bills for the district. Jean figured the tax rate, and Betty mailed the bills, and we all typed. When I think back to how many bills we mailed for that job alone, I just don't know how we got anything else done, but it was amazing that we really did get quite a bit accomplished. I've always tried to copy Jean's procedures when he was district clerk. He set such a good example about confidentiality and the ethical handling of matters. I was lucky to be exposed to that and tried to carry on those attributes in my own since then. When I became Board of Education clerk, it was also Jean's financial savvy that put the new district on such good, solid financial grounds. I'm not sure how many of you remember that we built the high school building, the pool, and renovated 2 elementary buildings without any long-term debt to the district. The first bond issue the district bought was in the late 80s when the building was added. After each of those early capital project votes, Jean went down to Security Trust, and they helped him put together a plan for the district to borrow all the money up front for bond anticipation notes. And then he invested that in CDs at more interest than we were paying. And so due to the additional interest income and the state aid, we were able to pay off the vans within 5 years. The new laws and IRS regulations prevent schools from doing that kind of thing anymore. It was a very good start for our district. It was always a pleasure to work with Gene, and I know he must have been frustrated from time to time. However, we would never know that. He was very calm and never said a word, except once in a great while we might hear the word pig coming from his office. Thank you, Gene, for making those years at Whitman enjoyable, and thanks for giving me such a good start in school business management.
My name is Barbara Walters, and I am the oldest daughter and middle child of Gene and Margaret Charlin. My husband Neil is with me today. He's over there. And we have 2 sons, and one lives in Los Angeles, one lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And they both would have liked to have been here today, but their schedules did not allow that. So I have some things that I need to pass on today that they our younger son lives in California, and actually just got back today from a tour. He's in a band and has been all over the country, and got home, and he's coming on Tuesday. Couldn't quite make it for today, but he's a man of few words like my father. And when I said to him, what would you like me to say for you the day that we have this appreciation, he said, well, I want you to say what I always say every time you tell me something else that Grandpa does, and that is, what a man. He always says, what a man, every time I tell him anything. Our older son, David, lives in Atlanta with his wife, and he sent me something, and I hope you read it. I'm going to try. This says, while I can't be in Middlesex in body today, know that my spirit is sitting in the front row, ready for the roast. I mean the tribute. He takes after his grandfather, you can tell. What can I say about a man who took out my final baby tooth with a pair of needle-nose pliers? He joked about how funny it'd be if he really did it. My grandfather is somewhere beyond one of a kind. In all sincerity, there are 2 men who created the adult I've become, my father and my grandfather. Today I'll share a few thoughts about the quiet, unassuming leader of the Charlin family. As far back as I remember, my grandfather has always led by example. He's often a man of few words, particularly if you called the house and he answered. But the words he speaks are relevant, timely, and often render unnecessarily complex situations to incredibly simple decisions. His decisive, focused outlook has been a benefit to our entire family for years. As a young adult, I watched my grandparents navigate the realities of the aging of the Emerson family. Every Thursday they drove to Rochester to see my Uncle Paul and Aunt Beulah. He helped Aunt Edie get moved to Penn Yan, and Grant picked up more New York Times and Camembert cheese for her on Sunday afternoon. I'm confident that if you'd ask any of the Emerson boys or Aunt Edie who they wanted in charge, it was Gene. He did whatever needed to be done without an ounce of fanfare or doubt. It was simply handled. For me, this is the definition of a leader. He also taught me the value of continuity, and there are funny things around us every day. Who else could give the business to everyone from doctors, ministers, waiters, and just about anyone else you could imagine? There is only one real way to know Grant isn't feeling good. No one's getting razzed. And there's never been a better fishing partner. I grew up fishing in my lake and was 23 years old before I fished with anyone other than my grandfather. I'll never forget trout fishing with a friend after I first moved to Atlanta. He was trudging down the center of the stream, yelling to me after every nibble, and talking about how many he could put on a stringer. It was in that moment I realized my grandfather showed me fishing as it should be, quiet, serene, and catch and release. Grandpa also contributed greatly to my love of baseball, just as he'd done with my uncle. I remember playing catch as a teenager and being astounded with the strength of his arm and the movement he could put on a baseball. I learned more from Grant about the science of pitching a baseball than from any coach at any level. And to this day, my grandfather amazes me with his artistic talent. It just wouldn't seem to make much sense that an accountant could crank out hundreds of stunning works of art. That dichotomy has never been lost on me. Whether it was his jewelry bench when I was a child, the dark room when I was a teenager, or his current day stained glass shop, he has produced countless heirlooms that will be passed down in our family for decades to come. As a new member of the family, you know you've made it when you get a stained glass piece engraved with the EDC mark. Well, that's all pretty serious stuff about a man whose great gift to the people around him could very well be humor. My grandfather's hilarious outlook on life and his ultra-quick wit have been passed down 2 generations so far, with no end in sight. So if nothing else, know Gene Charlin is equal parts comedian, patriarch, business manager, and artist. I'll always remember his first reaction to a college girlfriend's overly teased hairstyle. Whoa, who scared her? It was one of the funniest things I'd ever heard, but her less than positive reaction to my grandfather's humor was all the litmus test I ever needed. The life is clear. Don't take yourself too seriously, and you better be willing to laugh at yourself. And that may be the most important thing my grandfather ever taught me. My sister is Mary Lou Charlotte, who's seated right over here and taking lots of pictures. And we decided, my brother's going to speak next, Dave, and we decided that maybe we would speak today because she lives with Dad. And we've been saying pretty nice things about him, and we're not sure she would. So we're going to let her sit today. But from all the Charlin family, we thank you all for coming today, and we feel very, very fortunate that we are part of it. What did I say? His hearing aids weren't working.
Somerset Maugham in The Razor's Edge said, "For men and women are not only themselves, they are also the region in which they were born, the city, apartment, or farm in which they learned to walk, the games they played as children, the old wives' tales they overheard, the food they ate, the schools they attended, the sports they followed, the poems they read, and the God that they believed in. Memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. It is my belief that a family is defined, even maintained, by the stories they tell at family gatherings, around the table, and that pass through our minds in the wee small hours of the morning. From that belief, I'd like to share a few stories with you. We grew up with stories of Detroit City and the Detroit Tigers and their farm team, the Colonial Merchants, of Ty Cobb, Lou Gehrig, Harry Heilman, Rogers Hornsby, and Nathan Thiel. Of the steel mill where Dad worked before going off to Hillsdale College, where he met and played baseball with my Uncle Art, which led to meeting Margaret Emerson, which of course led to the rest of the story. As our early education, we heard the story about the airline stewardess that backed up to the propeller. Disaster. We heard about the butcher who backed into the meat grinder and got a little behind in his work. We learned about dragon milk. That was from a cow with short legs. We learned not to stack the supper dishes after they were used because then you'd have to wash the bottoms. When I was quite young, Dad worked Saturday mornings at the old mill just down the road from here. Some Saturday mornings I'd stay home and watch Fury, Rin Tin Tin, Kit Carson, or some of the other morning shows. But sometimes I go down to work with him, and I still remember the smell of the grain and the chaff and the pile of corn out by the road, corn cobs out by the road, and how glad I was when noon came and he would be home till Monday morning. When I was at home and Dad was supervisor for the Middlesex from 1955 on, I sometimes resented his having to go off for a frequent evening meeting. But we always had time, he always made time, to go across the road to the skinned area by the old barn to play catch or to hit me grounders supper time in that 7 o'clock meeting. When I went off to college in '62, every week for the next 4 years, I had a letter from him in Friday's mail. It was always typed and always started out with his bowling scores, filling me in on the goings-on in Middlesex with Love, Dad. It was a defined consistency in a sometimes tumultuous time. I took a trip in '67 after finishing my master's degree, visiting friends in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and down in Ohio. I remember that I was gone a couple weeks, and when I got back, they asked me, "Well, do you have any friends left?" I bought my first car, a '69 Chevy Malibu from Bob and Epps back in the fall of '69. If you remember, those were significantly tumultuous times. I was having some trouble understanding the logic of sending Americans halfway around the world to save Vietnam from the Vietnamese, and I had a decal on my rear window depicting a peace sign and the American flag. My Uncle Gould and I had continuing tension as he contended that what I considered to be a peace sign was really a Babylonian sex symbol, and that sideburns, which I had, were a means of identification for a certain marginal and questioned segment of our society. As we did back then, whoever in the family who had the newest and assumably most reliable car offered it to another part of the family if they were taken off on a trip. And so I offered my new car to Dad and Mom to take a trip to visit friends down in West Virginia. I probably had some guilt over the peace sign, flag decal on the back window, being very aware that Dad had been in World War II, the Battle of the Bulge, and had seen some things that I couldn't even come close to comprehending. So I offered to take the decal off for their trip into the hinterlands. His response was, "Dave, to tell you the truth, I don't think we're going to run into many Babylonians down in West Virginia." It was a message that it was okay, that we were okay in our commonality and in our differences. In my adult life, whatever that means, I knew that I could go to Dad for a sound, reasoned, and honest perspective. A month ago, Dad spent 3 or 4 days in the hospital with pneumonia. He had television and was planning on watching a Tigers-Yankee game in the afternoon. When I visited him late morning, he said he'd taken a nap in the morning and was so tired he thought he might drift off again in the afternoon. I was afraid that he'd wake up and if the Tigers were up 11-0 on the Yankees, he'd think he died and went to heaven. It has indeed been a blessing, a lifetime affiliation with a good and an honorable man. There's an old country song about "Send me my flowers when I'm living." I do think that you got special delivery of a 15-acre flower garden today. Congratulations.
Statements like that are only to a family. The one thing I'd like to relate to, being a veteran and my father during World War II, is when I was walking the halls of Middlesex Valley with my grandfather, my father, in association with Gene, and that I was introduced to him and knew him, that I could speak to him in the hallway, an adult that was, I thought, show. I really felt good about that, being able to speak to someone that's in charge. But still, even then, I knew of my dad's commitment in the service. I didn't know anything of Gene's World War II commitment. And it's just 2 sentences, but it really means a lot to how many people were there and also the ones that didn't have to go. Of course, he went into service as an infantryman. But then when he volunteers to be a medic, I mean, that was like putting a sight on or a cross on you. You know, if you took a medic out, then they didn't save or get a couple people back in combat. It wasn't an easy job, whether it was World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. It was a job that was hard to do. You had to defend yourself and take care of your buddies. to volunteer for that tells me so much more about a man that I knew to speak to, but now know much more about. Thank you, and I'm proud to have a person of your caliber to do what you did at that young age during World War II. Thank you.
We can open the floor for who wants to speak. You're welcome to stay in your seat with this mic or come out in front. Mary, put your hand up.
All good stories are welcome.
I would say just amen.
Well, ask about the rocking chair. There's a story about that. It's not here, but there is a rocking chair.
A rocking chair story?
There are pictures. The one on the left was Dad in 1914 when he was a baby, and a couple days ago I took a picture of the same rocking chair that they had refinished for my birthday or something. I think it was your grandmother's, wasn't it, Dad? Right. It's an oak rocking chair, and he's sitting on it. On the right, it says 1914 to 2006. So.
The rocking chair stood up better than I did.
Yeah. Gene, you got anything to say?
No, I want to say thank you for it. I believe most of what was said. It was funny if Mark had happened to go to school in Michigan, and I happened to go to the same school, this wouldn't have happened. It's a different world.
Yeah, it is.
Just little things. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right.
Okay, well, we're gonna, if we could get Gene and the family to come up in front of the table, we can take a picture, and Ruth and Paul will present the family plaque.
On behalf of the town of Middlesex and the Middlesex Heritage and as a friend, thank you very much.
This program, I'd like to introduce Judy Hart and her family, and you have the programs in front of you, both on Gene and Judy, and there's quite a list of times and commitments and years of committed to programs and supported churches, and it's amazing how many years can go by and someone can be part of and support a program. Ron Davis asked if you would come forward and start this off for Judy, please.
It's a little bit odd because I know that they asked to have a non-family member kind of start this off. And I don't feel that way. It seems like from day one, we've always been family. And as we've grown up, and my brother-in-law married Judy Ann, I guess we are family. So forgive me for being family, I guess. I was pleased to be asked to speak. Before I get so old, I forget that, you know. So when I asked my wife, Carol, when she remembered about Judy, her cookies. Always remembered the cookies. I know when my father passed away, 1961, that Judy Ann, she had to be not very old. All the cookies that they made for us, the family, but it's been that kind of relationship all through the years. I remember my earliest recollection, I don't know exactly how old it was, but I was probably the neighborhood about 3. But it made such an impression on me. Fred had come up with a sleigh on a winter day, winter evening actually, very quiet, very quiet evening, but just one of those very pretty, light snow falling, you know, and it was so quiet. And that horse, I think we had one eye, Judy, and I lost her. There she is. Was that not true? But it was just such a vivid memory. It stuck so clearly in my memory. Shortly after that, I know that a little girl was born to the Harding family. I was 4, and about a couple months later, my mom had a little baby, boy. And I insisted that they name it Carol Jean, because that's what I thought all babies named that. And you know, I won out. They named Eugene. They really did. But the things I appreciate so much about Judy is her flexibility. You know, if you have the pain, she'll do it and then do what she's going to do anyway. I mean, she's so open. I mean, she never has an opinion on anything. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, Republican, you know, she does. Well, I don't know about that. But anyway, on behalf of our family, our church family and my own personal family and the town of Middlesex, Judy, I so appreciate a lot. And thank you for all the support and love you've shown to all of us. Congratulations.
I think Michael is next, please. Carter family. Get it down for Rick.
Thank you, and let me just say that I'm number 2 in the list of 5 Harters, and all of my sisters and brother are here today, and along with their spouses and others, and many of the grandchildren are here as well. Our boys, Mike and Sean, Mom also send good love to you. It's good to be back home. It's been quite a while since I was here. And I want to thank the town of Middlesex and the Heritage Society for honoring our mother. 14 years ago, I had the opportunity to talk to many of you in this group. And on that occasion, we were celebrating my father, who was one of the brightest, loving, gentlest men I've ever known. At that time, I remember saying to you that Mom and Dad were a team, and whatever accolades we gave to Dad that day were Mom's as well. Mom and Dad were terrific teachers. Dad taught me to drive a tractor at age 6, and at age 8, Mom granted me my request to drive a pickup truck, and she patiently showed me how to shift gears without giving her whiplash. Soon she became so trusting that she would read the mail as I sailed along the dirt roads on South Hill. 12 years later, Mom again showed her ability to teach. Carol and I had been married for a few weeks, and Carol had no driver's license. Her father used to buy beautiful Oldsmobiles every few years and vowed that neither daughter would destroy them. Those of you who know Carol know her independent spirit, oddly a lot like Mom's. She didn't want to rely on others to drive. However, our marriage nearly ended after the second driving lesson I gave her. Mom rescued the marriage by volunteering to teach Carol to drive, and a short time later, with my mother's patient instruction, Carol passed her driver's test. Mom took Carol in as a daughter, and for the past 45 years has treated her with the same love and kindness as her biological daughters. Carol even adopted Mom's driving style, fast and aggressive. Mom and Dad were a tremendous family, and Mom still is. After a long week of work, both would pack up whatever kids were around and go to our Friday night high school basketball games. Even though we often lost, Mom and Dad had something positive to say about our performance. One time I ran into difficulty with my high school basketball coach and was brought that I wanted to lead the team. Mom characterized my decision as quitting and reminded me that Harters don't quit. Her admonition has always been embedded somewhere in the back of my mind, and I still hear her voice during difficult times. Wife Carol has been a heart 3 times as long as it hasn't been, and has also been affected by Mom's fierce declaration that our girls don't quit. At 84, Mom still has that marvelous independent spirit. She will climb on a jet in Buffalo, and 6 hours later will climb off in Las Vegas, full of life and ready to participate in the lives of the Nevada Hearters. Our mother is loving, affectionate, kind, and tender, fierce at times, but always a patient teacher. Thanks again, Middlesex and Middlesex Heritage Society for honoring Mom, and thanks to everyone who celebrate with us today.
Judy, where are you sitting in what area you are? All good stories. We always played ball in the barn together. Come on up. Like to walk. You want this? No. You're going to be good. Even though he was a little shorter, but he was a little older, he could still beat me on one-on-one. But I'd like a rematch.
What amazes me is Dan Paddock is giving me advice, and I'm listening to it again. Back in the old days, he'd give me advice, I'd be running from George Spike and his boys. But hello, what a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I'm Frederick C. Harder, a.k.a. Rick, the youngest, in fact, much the youngest, of the 5 children of Frederick Lee and Judy Harder. There's a German expression. My mother, despite insisting she's only Irish, must have learned from her German mama, Lucy Fires. Arbeit macht frei, which means work creates freedom. Not only does my mother believe that hard work overcomes all difficulties and guarantees success, she epitomizes it and instilled this Puritan ethic. I remember my mother working at Johnson's grocery store just up the street, cafeteria in Middlesex Valley Central, and the Middlesex post office, incessantly cleaning and cooking at home with my older sister, who was not experimenting in the kitchen, and most importantly, helping others. Even now, there's always a battle to stop her from mowing the lawn. She argues, it's good for me. This is also the same answer she gives about bringing in the wood for the stove. Speaking of working in the kitchen while doing 1,000 other things, my mother is known for her molasses cookies. Children, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, and now grandchildren and great-grandchildren beg for Gigi's cookies. I framed a couple, they're back over there. I don't know if they made it up here or not. Although I'm able to withstand these cookies' temptations, I must apologize for the others who are much weaker than I am. My mother's a diehard Democrat, possibly her only flaw. She, of course, was very upset. She, of course, was very upset over Bill and Hillary's plane crash. That's breaking news. Bill and Hillary's plane went down. They were whisked to heaven. God said to Bill, "What makes you think you deserve to be in heaven since you've sinned so much?" Bill replied that, being president, he tried to help people and protect them from the mean-spirited Republicans. Well, God said, "Good answer. Now you may sit at my right." But then turned to Hillary and said, "Now, Hillary, tell me why I should let you into heaven." Well, God, it's like this. I was the first lady, co-president, and president-to-be. By the way, I think you're sitting in my seat. I must share this last story with you. I recall my mother's 80th birthday party. It also shows why my daughter is only second when it comes to being tough. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, 4 angry men suddenly showed at our house and accused our dog of killing sheep that day. My mother then asked me if our dog had been with me. I timidly squeaked out a yes. I think I knew what was going to happen. One of the men said, "Well, Judy, we know it was your dog. We saw it." He held out a hangman's rope and he intended to loop it around my dog's neck. My mother then said to me in that voice that was almost as scary as one of the Exorcist, "Ricky, take that dog outside." So I was opening opening the door, my mother told the four to get out of the house and offer land. Now, the next thing I knew, she had reached for the dreaded broom, which Butch later stole, and she began swinging it before a race to their trucks, disgrace without our dog. Later in the evening, the leader of the four returned with a dead canine in the back of his truck. That dog was a spitting image of our Clifford. He apologized to my mother. Guess what? My mother did not acknowledge it. And had not my father been there at the time, I think she would have struck that would-be dog man with that broom. Thank you, Middlesex, especially the Heritage Historical Group, Ruth Clark, Dan Paddock. Special thanks to Bert Alexander. You all know of community spirit, patriotism, generosity, and of a willingness to formally recognize citizens. Thank you for honoring my mother and Mr. Charlotte.
Microphone down low enough for me to speak into it. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My mother is a very generous, kind person. She loves her family. One winter day when we were small, she bundled us all up, got in the car, and went uptown to Jacob's store. We all got inside, and Mom asked, "What did I come up here for?" And we told her, "You came up here to bring Grandpa. He's home in the toilet." Toilets. Butch. I'm a member of the Heritage Group, and I thank everyone for having this appreciation day for the citizens of Middlesex. Thank you very much.
I hope Butch gets his turn here sometime.
I wasn't going to speak. I think
Carol? You're on the list.
Oh, no, I did not.
Okay, Josh?
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm Rick's middle child, and there are a few things, some life lessons I've learned from Grandma that she's instilled in me. The first thing is to be an honest person. All right, Grandma taught us that. Also, be a caring person. The one thing is always take pride in yourself and everything you do. And these are lessons I try to incorporate in my life every single day, and hopefully will instill in my daughter. So thank you, Grandma, and congratulations.
And then Mike.
Thank you, Town Middlesex, for having this day and basically sharing our appreciation that we've had, I've had for the last 43 years of my grandmother. When I was thinking about what I was going to say today, it really was quite simple. Grandma brought us back to the basics. Love your God, love your family, and then serve your community. This is what's been demonstrated today, and I should honor her in this way also. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Grandma. My wife, Mary Beth, Judy's daughter, and I'm sorry, granddaughter.
Hi. I officially became Judy Hart's granddaughter, and I married wife. But what I wanted to say is that on behalf of all of us grandchildren-in-laws, that as soon as you come to family together and meet Judy Harder, you become a grandchild. And on behalf of all of us, it means so much to have another grandma in our lives. Thank you.
To introduce another in-law, Butch Smith, which I've known for a time. But I heard a little story. He was up helping his mom with a project on the driveway that needed some drainage around the house. And somewhere along the line, the outhouse, wherever that was, took a swipe at him. I guess he hit his head on it or some sort of an injury to his head. And I'm not sure if that was an accident, but shortly thereafter, while he's using the backhoe, he somehow bumped it. And from bumping it, it kind of went to a point where it was almost fell in pieces. And now I don't think that, is it around anymore? No. It's gone. So he got unconsciously giving. They did a good project down there to get drainage done, which I know you're not going to let this slide, especially with these sons sitting around here, your in-law brothers.
I wasn't going to say anything, but my name was brought up several times. You know, I think back, of course, most of you know that Carol Davis is my sister. She married Ron, and I came up to visit them. And I told my sister, I was in the Army at the time, I said, I'll come up and visit, but I'll sit around your house all day, so why don't you fix me up with some local girl? She did. So,
Some local girl.
but I can say it's true what Mary Beth was saying. To be a part of the family. Mom has always been open and receptive to us and to me personally. You know, I think back, you know, about a family and what makes a family work and stuff, and, you know, love. But love is shown and demonstrated by work and sacrifice. I can tell you, Mom loves her family. And I thank you for that, Mom. You know, I mean, some of the things that happened, I mean, I have some stories, and probably I shouldn't tell some of them. But, you know, the broom was mentioned. I should mention that. I had the church bus there. Oh, well, I was there because we went to live with them for 2 weeks while we modeled our house. 2 years later, we were still there. That happened twice. But I had to use the broom to sweep the bus, and I put it back on the porch. Well, something disappeared. The mom insisted that I had left that broom on that bus, and it was gone, you know. Oh. Well, the broom was found later on, and it wasn't on the bus when it was found, was it? No. You know, I think of another story, too. Here recently, we went to Arizona. I got a call from Mom, and she wanted me to come down and look at her vacuum cleaner. Something was wrong, you know, with the carpet sweeper. So I go down, and I take the carpet sweeper apart, and what do I find but a pair of pantyhose? The only thing I could think to say to her is, "Are you okay?" Mom, I want you to know that I sincerely appreciate you. And I think, you know, it's one thing, you know, to love your family. Sometimes you do that out of obligation. But I can tell you, somewhere along the line, that Mom and Dad became very good friends. And, you know, it's kind of unique. I like my mother. And I thank you for being a friend.
I'd just like to point out one thing on Judy's list, 56 years American Legion. Every Memorial Day, her and her friends would gather and take the cans and the poppies and go out and sell them and gather that money for the veterans faithfully. And rain or shine, they did that. And they had some pretty good sums that were gathered. I remember seeing them count the money on the table after the parade. So that was a commitment for a long time. We appreciate you for that. And then lastly, I remember I was told also, I don't think I ever made this mistake, but it's postmaster, not postmistress. She's corrected a couple I heard. I'd like to take this time to thank all the family and friends, because you are the ones ones that make this possible. For you coming and sharing and supporting not only the family, but the friends and townspeople. That's so important. And, you know, I'm not that old, I'm getting there, but to remember those early years where the community centers and the town halls were evolved around that. We've got to work, and I hope that this plays a little part to renew that, those old times. And I sure heard it today. So thanks you for all for coming and keep supporting it. We appreciate that. And Ruth, without Ruth and Janet Lee and their diligent many hours of research and organizing, sometime visit on a Saturday to look at the many statistics that have compiled in 3-ring binders from the churches, the schools, even the local bank robberies. They have that all documented with pictures. It's remarkable. And again, Jean Charlotte, Judy Hart, thank you very much for all of what we heard today. Thanks for coming. And the rest of the time for more social time while you're here. Oh, I'm sorry, flag and pictures.
Our volunteer group on Wednesday, I would not be able to do all that we do. We've got a very faithful group, 8 of us at least, every Wednesday morning, and they have helped do a lot of this research. I can't take the credit on myself.
Okay. Let's get the presentation and pictures of the Hart family, please. She's right there. You're still lining up. Rick said I'm supposed to tell you what to do. Okay.
Excuse me. Hi there, folks. Slip by you. They keep turning them.
Go ahead, Ruth.